Welcome back, everyone. I hope this works. I hope you had a nice lunch break and got some sunshine outside. It's super beautiful. But it will be very interesting now in the second part of our program. Before I introduce our next speakers, I wanted to let you know that we do this here for free, but there's we accept gladly donations, and there's a box that says thank you, this red box. And if you feel like this was worth the tour, then you can put some money in it. That helps us get by. I wanted to say something else. Yes, in terms of common luxury, if you need your phone charged, just go to the nice gentleman with the headphones there, and he has a charger station with all kinds of different sort of setups for different... Only iPhone? Yeah, okay. I thought that we have this kind of mixing board. Okay, good. Well, anyway, and if you don't have an iPhone, just, we'll find another solution, which can be just not using your phone. Was there anything else? Actually, I had a question to the organization, because I thought it was really nice when we had that door open, and I was wondering whether we could keep it open and have this very nice breeze of fresh air going through. But I don't see the person of the organizer. Can we? Yeah? Would somebody be so nice and do that? Because I think it allows our minds to stay fresh and the thoughts to travel free in space. And I think it wasn't noisy. Perfect. Our next speakers is Kim Courrèges and Felipe De Ferrari from Plun Común. This is an office based in Chile, who have... it's an office that has done a lot more than architecture. I got to know the two of them through a series of interviews they were doing, because they have a website which is called O300 TV, and then later on was renamed an OnArchitecture, which is collecting interviews with architects, many of them, and I had been interviewed by them at one point. So they created this big reference. They work at the Universidad Católica in Santiago de Chile, and have a very interesting kind of activity at the school, but also in the city. It's a very international place. They invite people from very far away, even though it's really at the other side of the globe. So it's a very connected sensibility, I would say. Connected with the current trends in the discourse. One of their main themes, and we're actually trying to make a project with them on that, is the question of public space and how public space today has to be reinvigorated and reinvented. That's a topic that's particularly important in Chile, which, as you might know, was one of the countries where this kind of attack on government and public space and all these agencies through a neoliberal economic agenda imposed by the US and others and World Bank and so on was very, very brutal, I would say. I think the adjective would be applied. And Felipe and his colleagues basically made like a call to their colleagues, all very young architects, and basically gave them a task to make a test design for like a piece of the city that was always identical, shown in an axonometric, and they were asked to actually draw a prototypical ideal public space for today. And I think this is a series amounting to 50 examples today, and will grow on. And I think this is a very beautiful initiative, I think, to actually force architects to take responsibility for the shape and the state of public space today, and not leave it to the urbanists or to the politicians. So I don't know if they do the talk together. You do? Yeah, very nice. So Felipe and Kim.
So, first of all, we would like to thank Andreas and the Swiss Architecture Museum's team for the invitation to participate in this symposium with friends and colleagues we really appreciate and respect. Also, Future Architecture Platform and all the institutions and people involved. We are very happy to be part of this common effort. As Andreas was introducing, we are Team Courrèges and Felipe De Ferrari from Chilean-French practice Plan Común, based in Santiago de Chile. Our studio was founded by Diego Gras and me in 2012 after 6 years of disciplinary debate and editorial production with 0300 TV and now OnArchitecture, which is basically an audiovisual archive of architecture for cultural institutions, schools of architecture, and architects in general. Our collection features around 300 original videos of interviews, buildings, installations, enriched with a selection of complementary material on relevant works of modern and contemporary architecture. The exercise of promoting certain issues and strategies in the selection made by OnArchitecture since 2007 can be traced for sure in our projects. We feel close to a certain genealogy of architects and we don't have any problem to recognize their influence. We believe that architecture is a common field of knowledge that exceeds individual agendas and of course egos. So Plan Común proposed formal strategies to maximize and strengthen the character of public space or shared space, understood as a key aspect of architecture regardless of its scale or program. This kind of a statement was established after visiting and studying many practices around the world with OnArchitecture and of course knowing the context in which we founded the studio, Santiago de Chile. So, regardless of the usual aspiration of a so-called pragmatism that many people like us may have, it is impossible to strip away the ideologies from our cities. In many countries, like Chile, we live under an extreme neoliberal model in which societies have been understood as exclusive devices to increase market value of private property. But let's be clear, we are not talking about an unfair or evil economical system, not only about this. We are talking about culture and the world in which we live. Chilean society in some ways is tired to be managed by neo-kings, non-interesting, conservative or business-oriented people and ideas. Also, we are tired of contemporary slavery. Unlike previous generation of architects, we feel that the current condition of scarcity is actually an opportunity to develop a critical practice by questioning the codes of power and the opportunity to develop a critical practice, by questioning the codes of power and the rules imposed by the very few, to displace them towards a transformative practice engaged with common demands. It is also for us a common luxury for young architects to be able to avoid commercial practices that are more and more dominant in architecture today, to avoid working for big corporations or questionable clients. In the end, the environments in which we live are affected directly by the attitude of the very few. In Chilean society, we are talking about the 0.1% of the population. So our cities are also victims of the negative aspect of the generic and lack of vision of urban experts, decision makers, and private corporations looking for profit. This condition has provoked the proliferation of common places in the worst meaning of the term. In reaction to this and other situations alike, we can see how communities and societies around the world are now mobilized against the consequences and iniquities of the system. The student movement in Chile since 2006 and then in 2011, Indignados in Spain, Sin Techo movement in Brazil, or Nuit Debout in France are just the tip of the iceberg of a reaction against the many inconsistencies of our models of development, administration of wealth, and lifestyles. The citizenship has aimed at reclaiming the public realm by several means. Before we continue, we would like to show some facts about the Chilean context, which is, as you might know, understood as a laboratory for neoliberal policies. The legacy of the dictatorships was then reinforced back in democracy by the left and the right. And as in many countries, when we talk about real changes to the system, they are all the same, they are all similar. A few facts of the current situation in Chile. So, for example, the success of neoliberalism in Chile is led by an extremely unscrupulous business class. For example, in last November, we got to know that the companies producing such a basic thing as toilet paper were colluded since like 1 decade to fix the price in the country. Actually, in Chile, we say for toilet paper, we say Comfort, which is the main brand of toilet paper there. So to be clear, a 4-roll pack of the same brand was sold in 2.40 euros in Santiago, and then the same 4 rolls in London have a price of 1.50 euros. So the difference is that the minimum wage in Chile is almost a fifth of the one in UK. So after a good media laundry and 6 months on investigation, Chilean justice decided to close the proceedings. So if you practice collusion in Chile, you probably will have to take some ethic lessons, no more than that. And actually, that is happening now. Sorry. So we believe our discipline could counteract this process by creating useless value through collective public spaces, often in detriment of private or individual interest, making use of the strategic approach of architecture, producing new ways to inhabit the world, to contribute in the debate and future of our cities, recognizing its inner conflicts and recovering the radicalism and transformative capacity of architecture to create specific common places that propose an alternative value system to the one proposed by the market economy.
So, of course, in architecture, there are really good examples of strong architects who are dealing with form, but also have a sharp attitude regarding the context in which they operate. So we extrapolate and appropriate some concepts by these references in our own practice. So first, the FAUSP. The concept here is to align the project or architectural form with social demands. Tom Emerson from 6A stated regarding this building, "You don't need to read anything regarding the political conviction by Vilanova Artigas. You understand that was a kind of contract between users and the building, a very powerful collective contract." Now about Lina Bobardi. To avoid sophisticated design solutions that would be enjoyed by the very few. Lina was a great example of this political attitude, directly influenced by Italian intellectual Antonio Gramsci. Defender of a poor architecture, understood as the one which squeezes the communication and maximum dignity through minor and humble means. A rebel position, especially knowing her social status, being married to Pietro Maria Bardi, which was a fascist art collector from the high Italian bourgeoisie. Now is Atelier Bowo, which is one of the practices we appreciate the most, the idea of commonalities. So their architecture is a mix of good design, humor, and joy. And the concepts such as micro-public spaces, behaviorology, or commonalities are indeed strongly related to common luxury. The strategy and extra space. So to use the strategic capacity of architecture to subvert conventions, as we already talked this morning, and to define a kind of common aesthetic shared by a majority. On this, of course, Lacaton and Vassal are masters, especially on the idea of extra space, which can be directly transferred to the public realm. So, as you can see, on one hand, our way of defining our position is through criticism, and on the other hand, we are impregnated with architectural references that we're not afraid to imitate. Yet criticizing is easier than imitating, quoting Vasari. We just showed a few examples of our references, which we hope find an echo in our work. So let's continue with our project. So We are convinced that radical, simple, and even somehow silent forms are more likely to be relevant and universal, and serve as support for collective use and imagination, besides the obvious economy of means they suggest. Until now, we have done around 35 projects. Technically, 5 of them were done before the official setup of Plan Común. So the team were young, as you can see, and we have less than 5 years practicing as Plan Común, so we can say we are still in formation and exposed as any of other architects to the conflicts between what we think, what we would like to do, and what we are really able to do in our context and situation. So we'll present some of our projects. Sorry.
Yeah.
So first, our office. So a couple of months ago, we transformed a garage in our new office, and so it's very basic rehabilitation, but effective and enough for us. So it allows us to have a nice environment without paying rent. So, because the garage is actually owned by our partner, Diego. So, the most interesting operation here is that we replaced the roof by polycarbonate transparent ceiling and with a wooden deck on the top. And we also use a lot of polycarbonate inside to keep the transparency. And it's like maybe 12 square meter space, so very small. And this operation allows us to duplicate the space we have, and to have this extra space on the top, which is a small terrace beneath an oak tree, a very beautiful tree. And so it's an extra space where we can smoke, have lunch, discussions, and a nap. Or waste time.
Which is crucial, fundamental architecture.
We think it's important to also waste time during the day. So then the park and memorial for Fernando Castillo Velasco. It was a public competition in Santiago for a small square, which is on the corner of this housing compound. So now it's a parking lot, and the brief was to create a square, a public space, and a memorial for the renowned architect from the 50s who worked from the 50s to the 70s, which was the best period for architecture in Chilean cities and was interrupted by the dictatorship. So our intervention on street level attempts to reinforce the concept of the proposal, Torres de Tarjamar, which is the name of the compound, as public space and metropolitan monument. By means of very selective transformation of the most critical aspects in the existing conditions. So eliminating the level differences in the compound, so to provide accessibility, and replacing pavements and replacing an existing auditorium with a square with water for children to play, and a small garden on the existing parking lot. And regarding the memorial, it was meant to be placed in the public space, but we thought that the monument and the memorial was already standing there, and it was actually the building, the 4 buildings. So we decided to crown them, following the edges of the upper cornice, and replacing the existing advertising billboards, which stand there usually. And so the monument recognizes and values the ensemble as one unit, split in 4 interventions and in the 4 roofs. And as a reference and homage to the architects of this housing ensemble, there were actually 4, so it was a good coincidence. So Castillo, Bresciani, Valdés, and Huidobro. And they were the 4 authors of this very emblematic work. And we wanted to pay an homage to the team and not a single architect. There is also, as you can see, it allows also to use the roof a different way. So, for example, for on open air cinema, and there is a message displayed on the biggest tower, the highest tower, and rotating and addressing to the entire city, which says a famous sentence by Castillo Velasco: "Todo el pueblo es arquitecto, all the people are architects."
So, next project is a research, actually, a collaborative research that is called Common Places, Strategies for Public Space. It's a collaborative research initiated and promoted by our office since 2012 with the aim... Yes. Like this? Yeah, better. So, Common Places is a collaborative research initiated and promoted by our office since 2012 with the aim to maximizing and give quality to public space. This starts from a concern on questioning the validity of current cooperative models, whether they are ideological, economical, cultural, or normative, in order to produce new and furtive public spaces. As many people have already pointed out, we believe that the role of the designers is crucial in framing this struggle. The designer as a public intellectual, not only by shaping something, but also having another attitude in front of the building environment and our cities, that we, of course, we should reclaim rather than to give up on. This opposition is not only a moralistic one, but we just want to live better and happier. We are not satisfied with the current status quo, and we want to contribute in the historical cycle that is starting abroad. We aim at producing alternatives which revalidate the public value of architecture as the way of thinking and building our cities. There are all kinds of themes or subjects of interest, from big scale to intimate spaces. It is important to focus on the potential of architecture in this reproduction by focusing on disciplinary tools, such as text and neutral drawings dealing with canonical architectural elements. The format in which we work and present our project is really direct. One single axonometric digital drawing in black and white, with all the context, of course, showing the kind of environment for the new strategies. In addition to a text of no more than 500 words in 3 parts: position, concept, and project. With this material, we aim at clarifying the position of each author in regard to the specific theme or subject, his or her formal strategy, and the project which respond to this vision. We aspire to have a broad catalog of cases to inject energy into architecture and its way to deal with the city. For this, we have invited a series of architectural practices and colleagues to contribute with material and strategies which will help us to build up this series. Each new collaboration had to stand from a particular aspect of our cities, the automobile, the streets, nature, infrastructure, and so on, which will help us to reproduce a new kind of public space in its subsequent application in other parts of the world. we would like to emphasize on this that the series of strategies we are showing now have been a dialogue, a collaborative process sustained since 2012 with many architects. In this sense, common luxury is also the privilege of collaboration between friends, colleagues, and people in general. Architecture as form, but also as a network of collaborations and translations. These strategies, of course, are only the first phase of this research. We will spread the word when the research will be finished. We will spread the word to different, between authorities, civic associations, and so on, in order to really try to achieve this type of strategies. We are not satisfied just to have these ideas, but also we would like to apply them in real context. So this is the group of all the contributors at this moment. It's a quite interesting group for many practices abroad, around the world. So and a spin-off of this research is another research actually that is based on Santiago General Cemetery, and that is called Santiago General Cemetery is quite interesting because in a very privatized global context, that is one of the few things that we all still share. However, this phenomenon, which also has spatial, urban, and architectonic consequences, has been neglected into the background. The current debate on global urbanization provides an opportunity to assume a serious stance on the design, rehabilitation, and integration of these funerary complexes. So the question lies in how we address the physical consequences of this will in our urban context through our main tool, architecture. This is the case of Santiago General Cemetery. It's located between the two districts, that is Recoleta and Independencia, in the center of the city. The General Cemetery was opened in 1821, just 11 years after Chile's independence from Spain. It is the first public cemetery in the country which provided with a foundational character, and its origin makes it one of the most valuable heritage in Chile. According to the cemetery records, up to 2 million corpses have been buried in this place, which altogether make a scale model of the diversity of the individuals in Chilean society, historically unequal, a model in which socioeconomic boundaries are defined and recognized as such. A clear example of this can be found in the density of the lots in the protected historical area. The pictures are from this particular area, in comparison to the later extension of the cemetery, which coincide with the resting grounds for more impoverished citizens. Sorry. This cemetery occupies 86 hectares of Santiago urban fabric, which make it the largest flat public space in its entire metropolitan area. It is the metropolitan public space closer to the biggest metropolitan public space closer to the city center, and the only one of them in the north shore of Mapocho River, an historical frontier for the concentric sprawl of Santiago. So we propose to understand the cemetery as a fertile public space embedded in the context of Santiago, a city which clearly lacks of land or facilities with good conditions like the integration to proper urban fabric, transport systems, and architectonic qualities. This research has simultaneous lines of action within the architecture school Universidad Católica since last year. First, the Advanced Studio Comunitarian Infrastructure Ring, that we were dealing, as we designed a series of projects around the General Cemetery. Second, a series of workshops with international guests such as Yoshiharu Tsukamoto from Bow Wow and Wilfred Kuhn from Kuhn Malvesi, two practices which have been really influential to us. And third, other courses of representation. These are some images of the workshop we did with Tsukamoto and Takuto Sando last year. And these are from the last workshop we held with Wilfred Kuhn a few weeks ago. So in the end, a great team of students, professors, collaborators, and people interested in the future of this public space. In the first phase of this collaboration, we decided to focus our work in the northern part of the complex, the most poor zone of the cemetery, lacking facilities and collective spaces. The network of new interventions will colonize and resting ground throughout their entire extension, always considering the material and immaterial heritage of this place. We see at Santiago General Cemetery as a model of Chilean neoliberalism and as a real prototype to test our thesis on the potential of these complexes in our cities.
So, we'd like to end this presentation introducing two projects related with the future architecture platform. Okay. Which is why we're here, actually. Commissioned by the Museum of Architecture and Design in Slovenia, in Mao, in Ljubljana. And for the Design Biennale, Bio 25, sorry, and our exhibition for Lisbon Triennale. So in Fugine, initially we were asked to do something inside the museum, maybe an installation. It was not clear. It was to be defined if it was a pavilion or an installation inside the museum or in the courtyard. And we decided to, we defined it in the end outside the museum and to spread the activity of the museum in the neighborhood. So it's a series of installation in Nove Fugine, which is a neighborhood initially planned in the decades of the 50s on the eastern part of Ljubljana city and close to Ljubljanica river, which currently has 15,000 inhabitants. Together with the Portuguese landscape architect Tiago Torres Campos, we developed this project together with Mao and for the Biennale. So this is an organized system of 5 plinth made of bricks, which aims at upgrading a series of places that we identified on the site and creating meaningful connections with their history, the spatial and atmosphere attributes. Their cultural role within the structure of public space and social relevance within their community. By relating to each other as a constellation, the interventions allow to create new orientation points and on the museum public grounds and its surroundings, hopefully reinforcing the connection and encouraging encounters between local people and the museum visitors, and providing very different uses up to the people. As I said, yeah, the small plinths made of brick with different dimensions, evoking Comuna Fundamentos installation for Venice Biennale by Kun Malvezzi in 2012. They are all strategically placed along significant elements. In this case, a huge tree in the park in front of the museum, or the river, and a bus stop, very emblematic by a very emblematic designer called Sasha Mestig. Looking to the back of the bus stop and toward a huge meadow, which is there. And also next to the community center, this one top left, which we are very happy to know will be used for the neighborhood festival in the upcoming weeks as a stage. So this family of devices construct, develops, and reinforce different uses, and we hope they will be enjoyed by the communal life of the neighborhood. So they are to be appropriated by the community in any possible ways. Now our project for the Triennale. So actually it's not open yet, so it's a kind of preview. So we're part of an exhibition, a satellite exhibition called The Limits of Landscape, which takes place in Amadora, which is a city in the northwest of Lisbon metropolitan area. It's the fourth most populated city in Portugal, also the smallest, and the most densely populated. So it's essentially a residential city. It's like a dormitory town for Lisbon, and it's a periphery without qualities, with bad reputation and stigmas due to ghettoization of immigrant populations, crime, racism, etc. The exhibition is focused on public space, taking Amadora as an example of a common and neglected city suitable to test spatial strategies in this type of urban fabric, in which genericness shows its worst side. So for this, instead of doing like an urban plan or about a city we don't know, we invited 10 young practices from different backgrounds to discuss, reflect, and design a series of micro public space, a concept borrowed to Japanese architect Atelier Bowo, understood as a collection of pocket squares, playgrounds, and small public space around 100 square meters that could create social interactions and new behavior. So, here you can see some examples of different uses and then inserted in a very conceptual way in the city of Amadora. And this is our example, which is a square for a nap. So it's basically a very simple structure with plants on the above and hammocks hanging, and that can be enjoyed. So that's it. Thank you.
Any questions? Sure not? How many designers did you have on the board for the public squares or spaces yet?
Well, at this moment we have around 50 cases, and we are finishing the series. We have been working since the last 4 years on this. It take a while because we need to work on the drawings, the text, and so on. But as I said previously, the idea is not to have this kind of creative strategies or paper projects, but also in a way to spread the word between all the people that could be interested, because in the end we are talking again about culture, and in our context, in Chilean context, we see that this could be a really good input for our cities actually.
You said you don't only like to entertain these concepts and projects for public space as a nice idea, but you actually want to implement them or see them implemented in the city. Have you ever considered becoming politicians?
Yes. We talk a lot about politics, but at the same time we are not. It's difficult because we, as we were saying, we are based in Santiago, and Santiago is quite a harsh place to be politician. In fact, 4 of the leaders of the student movement in 2011 are now deputies in the Congress. They are trying to do some things, but almost immediately, 2 of them were kind of co-opted by the coalition in power. So in the end, we have 2, and then one of them is from autonomous left, and the autonomous left movement splits now in 2 parts. So it's always a little bit difficult. So it seems that for left wing politicians or people interested in or from left, actually it's quite difficult to articulate. Meanwhile, the ones in power are really articulated since several centuries ago, and we are talking. No, I'm serious on this because of course we can say that we all have these kind of corporations in every part of the world and so on. But the thing is that in Chile, it's really, for us, it's quite extreme because they are really, really conservative. They are really Opus Dei and Legionarios de Cristo oriented, you know. We are still discussing the abortion. Some days ago, a law has passed. Before it was impossible to talk about abortion. So it's quite difficult, but because, yes, we are all the time feeling that we are being disarticulated, even in the environment which we work, in the Catholic School of Architecture, which is very Catholic, of course.
This gentleman had a question first.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for the presentation. It was really great. I really appreciate your catalog of common urban places, and I was wondering, actually the term common, as was quoted at the beginning of the day, coming from Ostrom, is not only regarding physical spaces, but it's also a lot about rules, about management, about governance. Are you also dealing with this layer on your projects, or not?
Yes, well, definitely. The idea, for example, this general cemetery is the first kind of real example we have on this, because it was a concept, it was a strategy from this catalog we did in like 1 or 2 years ago, 2 years ago actually, and now we are trying to apply this model, and we are dealing with a lot of bureaucracy and with all. We are actually. The General Cemetery is one of the oldest institutions in our society, so it's quite bureaucratic, you know. And we have been dealing with this, and it seems that after like 8 months of talking with them, we sign an agreement of collaboration between the School of Architecture, between Plan Común mainly, and the General Cemetery, in order to really work in some projects. We decided at this moment like 5 or 7 intervention sites. We will work on this design like really in realistic terms, you know. But although we are completely agree with you that regulation is extremely important, that legalizing architecture, as Brand Luer, for example, is talking, it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting approach, definitely. Again, we are talking about culture, and then we discuss this every week almost, because we don't think the same within the team, and not necessarily. And the thing is that some of us maybe think that we can try to find an alternative value system, you know, and to try to really to work on this thing, and not to as Jack was pointed out, not from within. That's also, it's a possibility, but at same time we are dealing with real projects, and so yes.
And also in a more general approach, we have done a lot of competition, like maybe all of us, but we have lost all of them. And so now with the cemetery, we are starting to think a new approach, which is by self-commission. So instead of waiting for the commission to come up, pop out, it's we identify some problems and some things and some projects that have to be done. And then start to define something, and to define the commission and then go and talk with the clients. So it's we think it's because we have also to do some didactics with it's maybe a pretentious thing to say, but we have to it's a dialogue. If you do a competition, you don't have the opportunity, you face a wall, or you don't have you almost never have the opportunity to establish a dialogue with the clients and to discuss the brief, and it's only all has to be shown and explained in the sheets you present. And then if you have the opportunity to talk to the jury, it's also a moment. But generally, it's impossible. They have an idea of what they want, and if you step out of the brief, you're already lost. So we think self-commission is an opportunity to discuss things in our way, and to also convince the client and that things can be done another way.
Yeah, sorry, but what Kim is saying is quite important, because we show this very, like, some of you can think that this very utopian, these cases, black and white, axonometric, and just the text and so on. But in the end, our practice is completely realistic. We are doing projects, as Kim was saying, we did like 20 competitions, like almost all competitions we could afford in the last 4 years. We are dealing also with clients, and we are trying to try to contaminate private commissions like a factory we are doing now with this attitude. But it's quite difficult, and in a way, as in the first interview we did with Andreas, he was pointed out the case of Cedric Price, that this very well known anecdote about a commission of a house. Maybe a project is also to reject some things. We don't see architecture as a service. Maybe a part of our work is a service, but also it's a lot of attitude, I would say. And yeah.
Still wanted to ask. Yeah, just if you have a question, we have the time.
Thanks so much for.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks so much for the presentation. I wanted to sort of follow up on some things that you said. I really appreciate very much the work in that you present yourselves as a group and as a team. And that's also, I think, present in the OnArchitecture, right? So that it's really about this cataloging of multiple voices. The memorial you designed, you also made the point of saying it wasn't one architect, but it was 4 architects. And then also in the Triennale, you sort of step back and say that we are not the architects, but you invite other architects, and in a way subverting your own voice. So one question I have is really about on language and representation, because when I see the work, there's a real commitment to having a unifying voice. And I thought it might be interesting in this context to talk about that, because obviously I come from a practice with multiple people also, and I'm very much committed to the idea of collaboration. And I know that there's purpose behind everything that you do, but there's a very strong idea about having a unified voice. And I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about representation and the way that you publicly present collaborative work.
Yeah, I will say that one comment, and then Kim. I will say that the representation is that for us is quite crucial, and we are doing these collages, and you might see that there are many offices that are doing the collages as we are doing it. For example, Office, Dogma, Bauco, and a series of practices around Europe. But actually, we don't care so much, because it's the most direct way for us to do a render, because we don't work with the really sophisticated type of programs or whatever. And then for the axonometric drawings, for example, most of them we started with the axonometric drawings, but not always showing the context, because for us was quite important to show the most public the public vector each project has, and it was really a good way to have all the time the context. In the case of Amadora playgrounds, We did the opposite because we didn't know so much the context there. So in the end, we proposed to have these isolated strategies that actually can be or could be appropriated in other cities by other architects.
Yeah, and actually the idea is easiness. So we want to do it the easiest way possible. I think Per Vittorio Aurelio talked about it once. So we want to be able each one of the team to do the same images and not have special skills to do them. And the isometry is like also the idea to show a lot of information in one drawing and also maybe more understandable for non-architects than a cut section or anything. And basically it shows all the features of one project in one image, and it's very efficient. And now we are trying to push the easiness further, and now we didn't show it, but we're changing a little bit and doing less black and white stuff and more to look like an aerial view and to be much more easy, much more understandable for anyone. And so
just one brief comment regarding the views of the collages. This is related to OnArchitecture actually, because we have been recording, filming since like 10 years ago with the same type of methodology, which is always frontal, and for us, which is the most universal way to approach the building. You see, photographers of contemporary architecture are
the image with the many axonometrics.
The approach by many contemporary architects and contemporary photographers, for sure, is to find the best view of the best angle possible of each work because they are working for someone, for a client that they want to look good, you know. And actually, that's why in a way we think that it's more universal to have this kind of grammar for both filming and representation in collages or isometrics. So
actually, I think the authorship question is very interesting, and the way the question, what kind of collaboration do you do, and how do you deal with the work of different people that are presented in one seamless presentation system, right? Because actually, it seems you work there not only as an architect but also as a curator. You organize a team, and obviously you also you give a briefing, I guess, right? I'm a little bit involved in this project because we want to do a book together, and I think next year we also try to exhibit this in our museum, right? Are we still on? Good, great. What would interest me is you defined this format somehow within your practice. How did it grow then? Did you ask other people to do the same? Okay, and what did you tell them in terms of what kind of rules and guidelines they have to respect?
We send like a document with all the guidelines, the angle of the axonometric, that it should always appear the context, that everything basically.
Okay,
of course, then we have the feedback by each architect, and we receive like very crazy things in some cases, but then we talk with them, and they work again with the drawing and so on. And yes, but they immediately understand that we are talking about a collection with a common authorship. So in the end, our idea is to have this collection with all the authors together. Not like, look, this is my case, this is my creative idea for the world. It's not like that, because everyone has a lot of ideas.
Yeah. This, for me, is a very interesting condition. So I think what we're seeing, and this is more a comment than a question, what we're seeing is a certain detachment of project and author. And this is different if you think back to, let's say, in the 80s or so, architects tried to basically develop a style of representation that would immediately identify them. This was a very important technique in competitions, to actually anonymous competitions, to make yourself understood to the jury. So this guy draws trees like that, therefore it is that one. This must be an opera building by Richard Meyer. Oh no, it was Carlos Ott, sorry. That kind of thing. Do you have to convince the other architects that you ask to basically adopt this kind of anonymized
style representation, or nobody has a problem?
No, I think they as I said, I think they understand immediately the scope of the collaboration. But you are saying an interesting thing, because for us it's also a risk in a way when we are doing also competitions. People start to recognize like this as an style, so they see, this is Plan Común proposal. So in a way we are now trying to change again, because this is not about the style in Chile. Yes, in Chile, not in, but in our context. So, and for example, in the School of Architecture as well. So now, in a way, although we're not sure, because we at the same time we have been filming like the last 10 years with the same methodology. Maybe we will continue with this methodology a few years more, or maybe we need to change. We're not so sure. Let's see.
Jack?
Hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciated it very much. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, let's say, form, because in the context where I come from, there's, let's say, a virulent, very passionate postmodernist attitude, which makes it very obsessed with individual identity, and makes, let's say, the possibility of a universal statement, or even, one of the statements you made at one point was that the form is a representation, that the form manifests a social power relation, and therefore that you choose the most universal minimal form possible. And this, in a way, suggests to me, I really just want to ask if you're modernists.
I will say that yes.
Which these days is powerful. I mean, maybe in Switzerland it's not so obvious, because they don't. It's still dominated by this form. But in other countries, particularly the US and the UK, the Anglo-Saxon world, this become a very problematic scenario.
Yeah, but the thing is, of course, we are also very critical of modernism and the application of modernism here in Europe and also in Brazil or in Chile. But for example, the most interesting process of architecture in Chile was interrupted by Pinochet, and that was the really modernist approach. So in the end, of course, modernism was really wrong about maybe the scale of the projects and maybe some, how they spread their concepts. But again, you can take some lessons of this process, and it's some.
And maybe a kind of tropical modernism of Lina Borti is what we're.
Which is part surrealism, part modernism.
Okay, so maybe there's hope for Britain by adopting tropical modernism in their own climate.
There's no hope for Britain.
There's no hope for Britain. As long as you're around, Jack, there is. Thanks a lot. Okay.